Campaign 2022, welcome back to the conversation, everybody. Voting has begun in some of the early primary states, including the state of Ohio, where there is a terrific battle, both the Republican side and the Democratic side for US Senate. Rob Portman, the Republican, is retiring. And we have an amazing candidate on the Democratic side, Morgan Harper. She is a consumer protection attorney. She's also a community organizer. And she is, as I said, one of the Democratic candidates for a US Senate in Ohio. Morgan, welcome to the program. The primary is May 3rd. How's it going?
It's good. I mean, it's a full court press here in Ohio. There's been a lot of confusion around the redistricting, map drawing. A lot of people don't even know there is a primary, and we are the main entity, our campaign, our grassroots campaign, that's actually reaching out to voters in this primary because we want people to know they have a choice. As we know, the party often doesn't like to educate people about their choices, but we're finding once people know I'm in it, that we have this platform that includes things like Medicare For All, they're very supportive. So we just have to spread the word as quickly as we can over the next couple of weeks.
And as you mentioned, the party establishment, I suppose their candidate is Tim Ryan, Congressman. How do you distinguish yourself? What are the main differentiators between you and Congressman Ryan?
Where do I begin? Well, there's a number of policy differences. I mean, one, I don't take any corporate PAC money. Grassroots candidate Tim Ryan has been one of the biggest takers of lobbyist money over his 20-year congressional career, including over $400,000 from defense contractors, for example. And it's flip-flopped on every major issue. I mean, he used to be pro-life. Now, as he evolved in his political career, tried to move up, evolved on that issue and became in support of abortion access. Used to be a member of the NRA, take money from the NRA, evolved on that issue as well. In fact, supported legislation that blocked the ability to hold gun manufacturers accountable and liable when mass shootings occur. And has also flip-flopped on Medicare For All. Used to support it, now doesn't. Stated reason because he wants to look out for union workers, when in fact, as we know, everyone, including a lot of union workers, would benefit from universal health care. So just obviously on the other side of that, I am in support of all of those things, and I've always been on the right side of those things. But yeah, no, I mean that is the kiss of death in Ohio politics, to flip-flop in this way. Voters aren't buying it. His strategy, it is clear, is to try to be a Republican in order to be able to win this seat. And we have to recognize that that has been a failed strategy for Democrats in Ohio over the past 20 years. We need to stand for something and actually have a campaign, the message that's gonna get that to people and make them believe. And that is things like increasing the minimum wage, Medicare For All, standing up for our values, not throwing some of our constituencies under the bus, like these anti-woke things that the party's trying to do. And we gotta go big here, and we can't continue to do the same old thing. And we have the chance to really make a whole different case to the voters of Ohio and actually win.
Well, it's clear that people who know your record know that you have been a consistent progressive throughout your career, and certainly Tim Ryan has changed positions. But for people who don't know much about you, some of the things that they may know, maybe because you were, this strange sort of arrest for trespassing at the Hillard School because you were showing support for an LGBTQ rally. What was that all about?
Yeah, so I was invited by a couple of students to attend a walkout they were doing in protest of a bill that's been introduced in our Ohio State Legislature called HB 616, or the Don't Say Gay bill. So probably folks heard about it in Florida. This is what happens is those bills will start often in places like Texas or Florida, but then they are quickly replicated in Ohio. They just get less national attention. So we have one of those bills here. It actually goes even further than the Florida law. It's saying any divisive content would be banned from being taught. And so I was proud and actually to hear from students who are going to be speaking out against that, walking out from the suburban district outside of Columbus, and went to it, spoke for a couple of minutes and left and didn't really interact with any school officials. But then a couple of days later, via Twitter DM, got a notification that they had filed a police report against me.
But you had been invited there by the students, right? I mean, you had been invited there. This wasn't in the school, it was outside the school, or?
Yes, on a football field, invited by students. Students let the administration know they're gonna be organizing this, let them know that I was gonna be attending. And look, I mean, it was very clear, and this is the political climate we're in right now, that they're trying to make an example out of me. I heard from actually people who have formerly worked in that district after the fact that this was 100% racially driven, and then trying to also silence the voices of students, which is what we should all be focused on, that are saying we don't want to live in a state where we aren't free to be who we are, where we have teachers that can't teach in the way that they want to be taught, and where we have parents who then aren't able to send their kids to an educational environment where they're going to be able to, get the best education possible. So it's real out here in Ohio, and I was proud to stand with those kids, and I will be always willing to stand on the side of what's right and not be in fear of any sort of retribution or political gamemanship that suburban school districts are trying to throw at me.
Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago that it seems that Tim Ryan is in fear of the unions, and maybe that explains his position in terms of flip-flopping from Medicare for All to somehow being against it. But it is clear, of course, that Ohio is a very big union state, and there's certainly a lot of union folks who are skeptical about Medicare for All. Why? And is it messaging? And what should the proper message be if you're talking to a union household about here's why you should support Medicare for All?
Well, it's really interesting because I have talked to a lot of union members throughout this campaign over the last few years. And I was also raised by someone who was in a union, when I was younger. And so I want to make very clear that in no way is it inconsistent to be both on the progressive side of things and also pro-worker, pro-union. Okay. And what I've heard from a lot of union workers, in fact, attending a strike that happened in the Toledo area in Northwest Ohio, was they're striking because of their negotiated healthcare coverage. Deductibles under that plan had increased 3 times, year to year, and their wages aren't keeping up with that kind of increase, and they are in fear of anyone in their family getting sick. So, a lot of union workers are waking up to the fact, just like a lot of other people too, that our healthcare system is not sustainable, that it has been on the side of making a lot of money for big pharma, big insurance. And for that to change, we have to implement a policy like Medicare for All. And yes, folks who have existing benefits that have been negotiated through their union, all of these policies would be phased in. But more than anything, going to the other side of this will get us in a place where we all have more predictability around coverage and cost, and that we don't live in fear of getting sick.
If you are victorious on May the 3rd, you'll go into a general election. There'll be a lot of things sort of hanging in the air in terms of policies from the Biden administration. One of them that seems to be bubbling up now is perhaps eliminating student debt. A lot of universities obviously in Ohio, but there's also some concern about, well, who would pay for this sort of thing? Where do you come down on eliminating student debt? And what would you say to President Biden if you are the Democratic nominee and you're talking about the politics of Ohio and why this might, how this needs to cut?
Cancel it. Cancel it. We need historic levels of turnout among young people to have any shot of winning this Senate seat as Democrats. We need to fulfill the promises that were made. We need to recognize this is a multi-generational issue, actually. Cancel it. We have given lots of breaks to very large corporations to be able to grow and make more money. And we need to be able to provide that same type of opportunity for everyday people. That's what people in Ohio want, of all ages, but especially young people. And this is the thing. I mean, we're seeing what the national, Democratic strategy, this like discounting young people, discounting Black voters, discounting all of it. It won't work. We win by turning out our base in huge numbers, not pretending to be Republicans like my opponent. And that's the key in this Ohio Senate race. And that's how we're gonna win. And that's what I represent through our campaign.
And on the Republican side of the Senate race in the Buckeye State, you have these Republicans who seem to be moving further and further to the right, embracing Donald Trump, whether it's Mandel or JD Vance, who Donald Trump just endorsed. What do you make of what is going on in Republican politics in Ohio right now?
Yeah, it's a race to try to drum up support among their base. They all have been vying for Trump's endorsement over the last several months. I debated Josh Mandel twice, who's still considered one of the Republican frontrunners. And here's what's happening there. I mean, they're throwing out their faux economic populism, ranting about career politicians, ranting about how they're going to take on big tech, JD Vance in particular, ranting about how they're going to drain the swamp, continue that Trump tradition. It's all nonsense. But what does it take to expose that? Somebody who actually is about doing those things, not just talking about it, who's saying that they're not gonna take corporate money, who actually has a track record like I have of standing up to big tech and also being willing to implement the policies that are gonna improve people's lives. Medicare for All, increasing wages, checking the unbridled corporate power that has really left so many of us in a more vulnerable position. That is what we have to do to counter the absolute nonsense that is going on the right. We are not gonna do that by pretending to be them. And that's the weakness of my primary opponent in Tim Ryan.
You mentioned the Mandel debate. That was a weird one because Mandel seemed to act like a horse's ass to you with one of his comments, and then he had the audacity to stick it out his hand as if he wanted you to shake his hand at the end. Is he just a bad person? Is he? I mean, what was it like to be on stage with him, to interact with him? What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, he is not a good guy, and it's all. I think that was what struck a lot of people, me in the moment, and a lot of people who watched, is that at the end of calling me angry 12 times, calling me stupid, that he thinks I'm gonna shake his hand and was like, call it a day, because it is all a game for them. But this is not a game for me. This is not a game for a lot of us. We have people out here dying, violence, healthcare costs, all of this is very real. I am very serious, and I'm not giving in to any of that. And I do think that people saw through those debates, both the threat of somebody like Josh Mandel becoming a United States senator, but then also the need for us to mobilize to really fight back against that and have somebody who's gonna be able to take that on. We need that strong contrast. We need people to be paying attention, and that's what we're trying to do through this primary over the next couple of weeks and beyond.
And if you win the primary and then beyond, you win in November, and let's suppose the Democrats are able to keep control of the US Senate, who knows what's gonna happen in the House. What would you argue to the Democrats in terms of the priorities? What should the legislative priorities be for Democrats moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We need to cancel the debt. That's a big one. Made the commitment, get it done. Hopefully it's done before I get there, but we need to do that. We need to understand that our whole rights are at risk right now. That's why I support expanding the Supreme Court to make sure that we're able to protect abortion access, voting, all of that. We need to increase the minimum wage, and then fundamentally addressing some of the systemic issues in the economy will require reconfiguring our competition policy, antitrust policy to ensure that workers in a stronger position, small, medium-sized businesses can compete. And then healthcare is at the root of all of it. Medicare for all, let's do it.
Morgan, what's the website for people who want to help you down the stretch here?
MorganHarper.org, MH4OH on all platforms. Really appreciate any support people can throw our way.
Morgan Harper, she is the progressive Democratic US Senate candidate in the state of Ohio. The primary is May the 3rd. Morgan, good luck to you.
Thank you so much.